Hi, welcome to A Gray Barn Rising. I'm here with Bootsy Beagle, and I'm giving a very special reading this evening of 6 different poets. I'd like to offer their work. Each of these poets had been a poetry teacher of mine, and I would like to honor them by reading one poem from each of them in this evening's reading, to thank them for all they've given me as a poet and as a person. I thought I would just begin, I would go chronologically at the various universities that I attended, and I thought I would read the poets alphabetically from each university. So I'm going to begin with my days, with a poet from my days at Indiana University, Philip Appleman, a poem from his book, Open Doorways. It's very difficult to select one poem per poet this evening because all of these poets are fabulous writers, but I wanted to at least find one poem to present in this offering this evening. So this is Philip Appleman's poem, Memo to the 21st Century. It was like this once. Sprinklers mixed our marigolds with someone else's phlox, and the sidewalks under maple trees were lacy with August shade, and whistles called at 8. And fathers walked to work, and when they blew again, men in tired blue shirts followed their shadows home to grass. That is how it was in Indiana. Towns fingered out to country once, where brown-eyed daisies waved a fringe on orchards, and cattle munched at clover, and fishermen sat in rowboats and were silent. And on gravel roads, boys and girls stopped their cars and felt the moon and touched. And the quiet moments ringed and focused lakes, moon, flowers. That is how it was in Indiana. But we are moving out now, scraping the world smooth where apples blossomed, paving it over for cars. In the spring, before the clover goes purple, we mean to scrape the hayfield, and next year the hickory woods. We are pushing on, our giant diesels snarling, and I think of you, the billions of you, wrapped in your 21st century concrete, and I want to call to you to let you know that if you dig down past wires and pipes and sewers and subways, you will find a crumbly stuff called earth. Listen, in Indiana once, things grew in it. That's Philip Appleman's poem, Memo to the 21st Century. I'd like to turn now to another poet with whom I studied at IU, Roger Mitchell. I'd like to read a poem of his from his book, Delicate Bait. And this poem is entitled Bad Sit for Ethan. I've been sitting recently with friends, hoping to locate the needle of repose in what is otherwise a pile of thought. I'm not supposed to notice anything, really, but the back of my friend's neck is there, and I notice the hair going its own several ways across the shank of it, the muscles tensing as he tries to swallow his saliva without being anywhere near it. These things come at me in a tidal froth, the world saying, "You thought you'd get away from us, didn't you?" So I try looking at the floorboards, a single floorboard, a small dent in a single floorboard. But before long, I'm swimming in the history of a piece of wood. It's an old board. It came out of a tree 100 years ago, and that dent, how did it get there? Did someone fall? Did someone drop her favorite china pitcher on the floor? Was it, as I sense, her last night in this huge, drafty structure? Did she leave these mountains at dawn, a few things thrown into a bag, a portmanteau, and race down to the train, hissing on its siding, back to the city, back to her sister in Athens, who, dying in her arms, told her finally the family secret which drove her to a life of crime in Barcelona? All we have to remember this fearful tragedy by is a small dent in a board in a house in the mountains, far from the sea, where the wind blows rain against the glass so old, things swim through it like a spill, and a few of us try holding the mind still. It's Roger Mitchell's poem, Bad Sick, from his book Delicate Bait. Moving now from Indiana to Colorado, a couple of teachers I had at Colorado State University. I'd like to begin with a poem by Mary Crow from her book Going Home. Long distance. Long distance. The truck pressing at my heels pushes me along over the pink hills of Wyoming. Antelope graze beside the highway, bold as cattle. This landscape is a dried lake bed, the odor of sage bitter in the hot air. The straight line of the highway cuts through flat meadows as if it were the shortest road to the fringes of the universe. Below the gray cliffs, temporary towns are laid out with rows of identical trailers, a dump, water spraying, a patch of green. Sleepless, miles humming under my eyelids, I stiffen in my seat. I am coming to you. My speeding car startles antelope into a blur. Turbulence pales the sunlight. I am coming to you, cloven-footed. A white coin, the moon clangs in the sky. Mary Crow's poem, Long Distance, from Going Home. I'd like to read a poem now from Bill Tremblay, from his book, Duhamel, Ideas of Order in Little Canada. This is a sequence of poems in this book. The poem I've chosen this evening is entitled Seizure. Upward, backhanded with sable brush, Duhamel stroked sunset's dark spillage, purple on snow crust. The shadow of a young man crossing pasture, the edge of winter woods, gold streaks through bare birches, hills blue like the face of a woman grieving her drowned brother. Radiance is a dance with stillness, Duhamel thought, stepping back from his easel, a blizzard in his eyeballs. His lips trembled, his eyes rolled white. He dropped the brush, stared at the moonlight silvering spears of summer grass in the painting. The young man heaving a spadeful of dirt, burying something deep, something still alive, something red with welts of love. Duhamel blinked, picked up his brush, added a flake to the silhouette. Something is missing, is what you start with, Duhamel thought. Streaking rays in wet white paint, webs of sunlight silver through dry stalks of weed grass with a needle. Hours, hunched like a fiddlehead fern, his hand aching, cramped. He poured himself a cup of joe, gazing at the yard-long photograph of his battalion on Guam, the whiteness, the beach sand, the shadows, the men. Not enough moonlight in my daylight, he whispered. Not enough bark with forests inside. Not enough quiet to hear the ground speak. Not enough music in the snow. That was Bill Tremblay's poem Seizure from Duhamel, Ideas of Order in Little Canada. I'd like to move now to the work of two teachers with whom I studied at State University of New York in Albany. And I'd like to begin with part of a poem. This is a book-length poem by Don Byrd, the great dime store centennial, and I want to read two short excerpts from the first offering in the book, which is called The Book of the Moon. The book is divided into smaller books. This is the Book of the Moon. This is how the entire book begins. I am the bearer of absolute knowledge, and this knowledge is the moment I think, incarnated in one eagle. I am not only a thinking being, I am also and above all, eagle. I have nothing to hide. I'm writing a book telling all. It's a cannibal. It's not inappropriate to laugh. If you laugh, the book will wait. It has perfect timing, and it will love you for your laughter. If I were offered human flesh at a party, would I eat it? Would I believe a morsel had stuck in my teeth and spend my life with a toothpick trying to set this bit of human free? Thus, originating ethical speculation, a word, speculation, having to do with light, sight, and hiding in dry leaves. I am suggesting that the apples on Eve's tree were people growing in their natural states. And here's an excerpt a little later from this first book, the Book of the Moon. Am I speaking here of an alien? Probably. It takes a lot of voices to sing a millennial song. The Bach is guitar transcribed for rain. I try to beat the moon out of a vision. The rain is Bach transcribed for guitar. I try to beat a vision out of the moon. The guitar is rain transcribed for Bach. I try to vision a moon out of the beat. At this stage in our investigation, we must guard against a circular movement of the heart. I can play chess naked, but I can't concentrate. I can't concentrate. The scene of the crime, too, is deserted. It is photographed for the purpose of establishing evidence. In fact, if we want to be exact, we do use a gesture or a facial expression. It takes a lot of faces to sing a millennial song. So those are two short excerpts from Don Byrd's book, The Great Dime Store Centennial. And I'd like to close this evening with a poem from a book of Judith Johnson, Cities of Mathematics and Desire, is the name of the book. And I'd like to read her poem, The Lava Tree. The Lava Tree. There are griefs that color and freshen the world. One day we wake to see a field in flower, the dew on each leaf reflecting our eyes. One day we notice that gold meadow which woke all around while we were looking at our hands, and we turn away from ourselves to smell the new mown sweetness. There are oaks we watch grow a long time from their hidden seed. The aging of our mothers and fathers, that day when they leave us, our own aging, how each day we stiffen, we learn more slowly and lose what we learn, how our noon will pass, how our night will cover us. A giant with huge limbs shading us from the sun. There are sudden sharp moments that sear the summer. Without warning, they shear us, turn us brittle, all at once. We know the sudden drying out of friendship, how those we believed, root and branch of ourselves, cut us off, how love itself will wither us, shrivel, betray us. Consumed, we feel the dry wind flame through our stalks. There are storms we wait out in stubborn helplessness. The fury funnels over our children, bears roots, strips the soil. Together we bow to the storm. Together it passes over or breaks us, though we cannot endure it for them. It is ours. There are winters of growing coldness, tundras in which we see that we will never bear, never fulfill our promise. The seed we carried so carefully has lost its season. Love has no more use for us. We must go down into our own ice. And we do go down. We are frozen under. The world endures its seasons without our generosity, our green good, without anyone knowing. Granite, smoking, lives. This has happened to me. This has happened to others I love. Then that day burns. We leap into sorrow again. That dark flame which filled the earth's heart uncurls, its tendrils breaking through the fissures. How well we become that luxuriance, how we flourish, how we open ourselves, unfold ourselves to that light, how air and wash of plenty we breathe out our lives. It was Judith Johnson's poem, Cities of Mathematics and Desire. And that last line of hers also makes me think. She says, we breathe out our lives. These teachers, and now my friends, have breathed out their lives into me and have shaped me in such powerful ways. And now as I come to the conclusion of my 2-year appointment as Indiana Poet Laureate, I wanted to read these poems for them, first to share their amazing work with all of these viewers, but also to thank these teachers deeply for the many ways they have shaped my life, not only in poetry, but have really taught me what it means to be a poet, the role of what it means to be a poet, how to live one's life as a poet. So I want to thank you, dear teachers, for all you've given to me. And I'd like to say that as Poet Laureate of Indiana, as I'm leaving this appointment now, you, as my teachers, have also been the Poet Laureate of Indiana through me, through all of the gifts that you have given to me. So I thank you all very much. Again, I read Judith Johnson, I guess I'll do this backwards now, Byrd, Bill Tremblay, Mary Crow, Roger Mitchell, and Philip Appleman, a poem from each of these teachers. Thank you so much for joining Bootsy and me for another episode of A Gray Barn Rising.